Good afternoon, Salome B here, and I want to talk to y'all about Amara Allegra, Amara La Negra. She came out and talked about how colorism exists, and Cardi B's sister came out and said something to her about, Cardi was chosen not because of her skin, but because of her character. And Amara Allegra seems to believe that Cardi has her fame because of her skin tone. Now, we're going to always be on this subject about colorism because the mindset of people and what colorism is has not been addressed. So I'm going to do my best to address it. Okay. Racism is interwoven in the laws of the United States. And the reason why it has been done like that, the first state to do this is Virginia. Virginia is where I live. I stay here and I do research on the population or just past times just to see what we were doing as African Americans at that time. And Virginia came up with some laws. The House of Representatives here in Virginia, they started to write laws because they were irritated with the free blacks that were living here in Virginia, who were aboriginal to the land. And you can do your research. You can look up free black people, and it'll tell you there were some free blacks here in Virginia. Well, they started to say things and they started to look at the population, and this is when the United States Census starts to develop. They go around and the people were complaining about the large number of biracials and how close the black and the white race were mixing. They would study and they saw that it was commonplace for a black man to mess with a white woman, and it was commonplace for a white man to mess with black women. And they started to see a large number of children becoming biracial. So when they took account of these people, they learned that.
Hi, are you in? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How long, is this one or three?
This is 3.
Okay, I shut
Excuse me, I'm at the library. So they start to see that there was a large body of biracials. So they passed a law. Well, they started to see how could they curb this overgrowing population of biracials. So they started to define race in Virginia. So Virginia started to separate the whites from the blacks, and they started to make laws stating what white people could do and what black people could not do. And this is called the black list and the white list, because they were trying to identify races and try to get some type of system where they basically set up a caste system. Like if you ever study anything of India had a caste system. Well, Virginia had its own caste system where they were separating races from each other, and it was basically black and white. You're white, you're black. The black people can't do anything, the white people can do everything. And then they started to label certain races that could do stuff as white, and they started to label if you were a servant transported from Africa or somewhere, then you were a slave. If you were white and a servant, you weren't a slave. You had certain privileges. So they started doing this. And they came up with the Casualty Killing Act and the Illegitimacy Act. The Illegitimacy Act was based on white women or black women who got pregnant with biracial children, they were persecuted and thrown in jail. Then they put illegitimacy off on the women, and they said it's the woman's fault if she gets pregnant out of wedlock, because they started to describe the biracials as bastards, saying that they were born out of wedlock, and they would look at them as a bastard because they didn't come out of marriage. They came out of wedlock. So this is the racist, interracial things that Virginia had been doing during the times of slavery and servitude. They started to separate the races, and in genealogy, Virginia, when they classified race, it was based on looks. Like if you were a biracial and you could pass as a white woman, just like Meghan Markle, then that person would marry a white person and they would have children, and their children wouldn't resemble black people. So then they started to separate. So this is where colorism actually comes from. And if you ever look up the Casualty Killing Act of Virginia and the census, where they said by the time the Civil War came around, they had 400,000 biracial slaves. That's what they said. So this is where colorism is interwoven into the laws of Virginia. And you might as well say Virginia is the United States, because Virginia gave half of its land to build Washington, D.C. And every child that has family here, family roots here, somebody in their family or grandparent or great-grandparent is biracial, because this is what they were doing in the beginning. And colorism started in the United States, which is Virginia and Washington, D.C. So Amara, the Negra, she knows what she's saying, but she just could not break it down in that order. And I just wanted to break it down because colorism does exist. It is an invention of the state of Virginia in the 1600s. And the Jamaicans and the Maroons in Haiti, they don't like to, they don't accept that Maroons lived in the Dismail swamps in Virginia. They dismiss those Maroons. And they say that they're not the same, but there were Maroons living here in the swamps since the 14, and the 15, and the 1600s. And the Maroons were mixed race as well, because there were some whites that did not want to join the Union, and they would escape, and they would all live in the swamps. So that's what I'm getting from doing my study, and I'm just here to talk about it. When I see these racial issues come up, I can really, elaborate, because Virginia was doing this to its population. It was killing biracials because they felt like that they were bastard children and that they were born out of wedlock. So then they set up these race classifications, and they went by skin tone. And that's it. And I'll talk about this more and more as these issues come up. Or, I'll do extra videos. But like, subscribe, Salome V. Have a nice day.